नीरज।
यह देखिए, बिल्कुल जो हमें लगातार अलग अलग मीडिया माध्यमों से जानकारी मिल रही है उसमें ये अभी तक पता नहीं चल पाया कि आग के असल वजहों का पता नहीं। लेकिन आपने ठीक कहा कि कल वहां सुनामी और भूकंप की खबर आई, उसकी वजह से कितनी तबाही और बर्बादी हुई, कई घरों में आग भी लगे, उसकी तस्वीरें आपने देखी। और आज ये टोक्यो एयरपोर्ट, हालांकि टोक्यो का जो ये एयरपोर्ट है वो प्रभावित नहीं हुआ कल की घटना में, लेकिन आज टोक्यो के हनेदा एयरपोर्ट पर ये तस्वीरें आप देख रहे
ठीक है
लगातार।
नीरज, तस्वीरें हम बता देते हैं। जानकारी मिल रही है, क्योंकि शुरुआती जानकारी थी, अब खबर ये मिल रही है कि दो विमानों में रनवे में टक्कर हो जाती है, लेकिन ये बड़ी लापरवाही इसे कहा जाएगा। क्या वजह रही कि पता नहीं लग पाया, ये जांच के कारण है, जांच होगी। लेकिन ये तस्वीरें आप देखिए किस तरीके से आग लगी हुई है विमान में। आप विधायक अमानतुल्लाह के ठिकानों पर छापेमारी हो रही है दिल्ली में।
So they have blocked the entire tarmac where the incident has happened. The rescue workers are reaching out to the exact location to pull out if there are people inside the plane and to take them safely to be cured to some place.
Right. Thanks a lot for staying with CNN News 18. I'm Shivani Gupta. We're keeping a close watch on these developing pictures coming in from Japan, where a plane has caught fire at the Haneda airport in Tokyo on the runway. What we do get to know is that the Coast Guard has announced there that one of their aircrafts may have collided with the plane. The visuals obviously speak of the extent of the fire and the extent of the tragedy, but it remains to be seen whether everybody inside that aircraft, if there were people inside it, were taken out or not, because this is happening on the runway. There are, of course, emergency provisions available where people, can come down the plane on those rafts, etc. But it's unclear whether the doors were open or whether anybody was inside or not. I want to quickly go back across to my colleague Abhishek, who's tracking the latest. So, Abhishek, this seems to be a very rare tragedy that has taken place, because the Coast Guard in Japan is announcing that their aircraft collided with this aircraft. So was this aircraft on the runway stationary when it collided? Was it trying to take off, or had it just landed? What is the update available on the situation?
Shivani, it certainly looks like a very rare event on the tarmac. We see the Japan Airlines flight JL516 landed safely on the runway, and probably it was moving towards its Bay Area when we suddenly see it a huge fireball emerging and still moving onwards. And that was probably the Japanese Coast Guard plane which had struck the Japan Airlines plane. Now, tragically, it is being reported that about 367 people were on board when this incident had happened. So initially, we were not sure if the passengers were on board and how many of them were actually there. But now it looks like certainly a tragedy, because the kind of fire that is clearly being seen in the visuals, it doesn't look like it's going to be a small accident. Though, fortunately, it has happened on the runway at the tarmac near. So probably the rescue and the relief work may have reached in time. But still, the fire incident is of a huge level, and a tragedy cannot be, done away with. One has to be waiting for more official information. But for now, we know that about 367 people were on board. It is Japan JL516 aircraft when it has probably struck this Japanese Coast Guard flight on the runway.
So, from some international agencies, we're getting some updates that this plane was the Japan Airlines plane with 367 people on board, which collided with the Coast Guard plane at the Tokyo airport, it looks like, upon landing. This seems to be an extremely rare case where two aircrafts are colliding on the runway. And moment of the collision, or when the fire broke out in this aircraft, is also now with us. I want to go across to MJ Augustine, aviation expert, joining us, Group Captain MJ Augustine. What would be the procedure in this case? It looks like the aircraft caught fire pretty immediately, Is there anything that can be done in that situation to evacuate the passengers on board?
Actually, you see, ground evacuation procedures are very much in place. I'm sure we all know there are slides which come out.
Yes.
It's it's nitrogen-filled bottle, and it opens in less than 1.5 seconds. And there are procedures in place. Actually, the cabin crew, the main job of a cabin crew when we travel is not to look after us. Of course, it is the secondary job. The main job of a cabin crew is they are the safety crew which are on board, and the life of all the passengers aboard the aeroplane is in the hands of those cabin crew. And the number of cabin crews also is fixed. Internationally, it is fixed. As in, if you have 200, close to 212, you are allowed to have 4 or 5. Or if it is less than 180, you have 4, and things like that. So these are all specified number of cabin crews who are there. They are supposed to man the doors and facilitate the exit. People who are sitting on the emergency exit, I'm sure most of us who have traveled in the civil airliner and sitting in the emergency exit have listened to the emergency exit protocols being briefed to you. So these are pretty much the things that are in place, and they have been in place after many such crashes which have happened, and people have lost lives on the runway. But thankfully, even India, we had recently, I remember 1 or 2 years ago, we had an evacuation on ground. Nothing happened, not even a scratch. Everyone walked out of it clean. So these procedures have, I would say, sort of stabilized. But the issue here is we need to look at it in the backdrop of the tsunami that has happened or the earthquake that has happened. So this Coast Guard aeroplane that was, going probably was in a great hurry.
Yeah.
That is why probably this kind of collision that one gets to hear.
Group Captain Augustine, the issue is I'm looking at this this visual that we've accessed of when this plane is taxiing on the runway or has just landed on the runway and has suddenly caught fire. It is unclear from those visuals taken from a distance at least whether there was another aircraft on runway. But the problem here is that it seemed to catch fire pretty immediately. So, and 367 is a very large number of people on board, and this could turn out to be a massive tragedy.
Could be. See, 367, I'm guessing it is a wide-body aeroplane. So something like a 777 or a Boeing 787, which carries in one trip, and it may have been destined for a longer journey, probably to US or somewhere in the Europe. So it carries something like 30, 40 tons of fuel. Contrary to common belief, we think petrol as opposed to diesel is more volatile, and the aviation grade fuel, which is actually kerosene as opposed to diesel, is more volatile. It is not true. Petrol, there's something called flash point, and there is something called the calorific value of the fuel. So the flash point of petrol is pretty low, but the calorific value of a petrol is much lower than diesel or kerosene. The kerosene has very high calorific value per gram, which means if it catches fire, A, it will instantaneously spread, B, it will the temperature rise is pretty fast and pretty high, and third and most importantly is it will continue burning for longer period of time. So these are three major challenges one faces.
In some of the visuals that we've accessed, almost the entire plane seems to be up in flames very quickly. I don't think it would have taken a very long time for that to happen. And as you were saying, very quickly and very high temperatures, and roughly the entire plane seems to be up in flames. How quickly, in such a scenario, as per procedure, how quickly do fire services reach the runway?
Very good question. In fact, you couldn't have asked this question to a better person than me. You know why? I was in an aeroplane which caught fire on takeoff.
Right.
My aeroplane exploded on takeoff roll on 1st of March 1995. And it was an engine malfunction led to fuel tank rupture, and the way it caught fire was less than 11 seconds, 10.5 seconds or so. The cockpit was on fire. I was on fire. So imagine 10 seconds is all it took for the fuel, for the tank to puncture, for the fuel to catch fire and come to the cockpit. So it's like explosion. It's like a bomb explosion. That is the kind of rate at which the plane travels, especially in the K-50. Second is about, I told you about the temperature rise. It melts aluminum very fast. Eventually, my aeroplane was, I mean, when I came out on the end of the runway, I saw it burning. By the time they reached, half the aeroplane had already was flowing like a lava. But less than 1 minute on the runway, the fire engines reach.
Right.
So the
Group
fire,
Captain, just hold on with me. I'm getting some breaking updates on this situation, and it seems to be some good news because we are being told by NHK, which is one of the news services in Japan, that all passengers appear to have survived this aircraft collision at the Tokyo airport. When we saw the visuals, Group Captain, the doors and all didn't seem to be open. It didn't seem like any evacuation process had taken place. At least the doors were shut. Those slides were not visible, etc. But what we do know from one of the services in Japan is that the passengers, the crew have survived this collision. So they must have been able to get out very quickly.
that's exactly what we were discussing, remember, just
Yeah.
a couple of seconds ago. And it was an Airbus A350. An Airbus A350, an Airbus aeroplane per se is very, very safe aeroplane. In fact, the fuel tank has something called fire inerting of oxygen. So the flame propagation in an Airbus A350 is much slower, and the temperature rise is much even. And that is enough time for the slides to deploy. And let me tell you, the crew are extremely well trained. I must tell all the viewers and you that every 6 months, the cabin crew undergo a refresher training where they go and practice this drill again and again. And, if you wake up a crew, you ask any crew, Indigo crew or any crew, at night in sleep also they'll be able to tell you exactly what to do. So that is the kind of training, that is the kind of muscle memory the cabin crew have. If you tell them evacuate, and that when you press that button to the time the first passenger is out is less than 60 seconds. So they have really, really good crew nowadays that we have, young boys and girls.
Right.
Kudos
right.
to them. Today, we have so many passengers saved and not one life.
Yes.
Which while talking to you, with fingers crossed, I was talking to you and you gave me a good news, and thank you for that.
Yes, we hope that, of course, we can get more confirmations on that. But let's just talk about this collision also. How rare is it for two planes to collide like this, two aircrafts to collide like this on a runway?
See, there is a wonderful term in Japanese called harakiri, and I want to use that term here. See, when we drive on the road today, nobody, not even Uber guy or anybody or an auto rickshaw guy, they use something called Google Maps, isn't it? But you'll not believe it. We don't use any kind of mapping devices on the aeroplane to show the aeroplane where they are with respect to the runway. Which is why we have cases. While talking to me, you can tell your team to pull out the data. There's something called taxi incursion and there's something called runway incursion. It is pretty normal, even today, with so much of technology, for aeroplanes to mistake certain taxiways. Suppose taxiways are numbered or alphabetical numbers are given. I'm sure you must have looked through the window and it is written A, B, C, D. So if you're told to go in taxiway A and someone goes into B, and if the visibility is bad, or if that's the other guy coming out is in a hurry, which seems to be the case because of tsunami and stuff, where the Coast Guard aeroplane may have been coming out in a hurry, and this aeroplane enters the wrong taxiway, then you have collision. There have been cases where large aeroplanes have run over small aeroplanes, and this was an Air Canada flight 759. So Air Canada, the Airbus 350, probably going off in a hurry, or the other fellow coming off in a hurry. You don't know what really happened. But taxi and runway incursion, with today's technology, is possible to stop. Only thing is, ICAO needs to take out some procedure, ASAP, or give some technological, assistance to the pilot in the cockpit. Lot of technology is there. The time will be too short for us to discuss the technology that is available today.
Right. Well, certainly something to look into, and Japan especially going through a lot right now, and then this is adding more on top of it. But the good news seems to be that all passengers, crew are safe as we speak. I do thank Group Captain MJ Augustine for joining us. I want to quickly go back across to my colleague Abhishek as well. Abhishek, any more updates that you're getting?
Well, we know that this plane which had caught fire, and we all saw the dramatic and dangerous footages. Now the report is that though there were more than 360 people on board, none of them have died. All of them have survived. This is what the Japanese, officials are telling us. And also, probably, as the captain was explaining a few seconds ago, that the fire engines are always on an alert mode. So the moment they may have seen those fire incidents happening, they all may have rushed full speed. And probably
तस्वीरें आप तक पहुंचा रहे हैं। देखिए किस तरीके से यहाँ जब टक्कर होती है उसके बाद आग लगती है। ये विमान जिसमें यात्री सवार थे, हालांकि आपको ये बता दें कि सभी यात्रियों को वहां से सुरक्षित निकाल लिया गया। ये रनवे की तस्वीर आप देख रहे हैं। टक्कर वहां हुई और उसके बाद ये विमान जिसमें आग लगी वो आगे की तरफ बढ़ते हुए आपको दिखाई देगी। 367 यात्री सवार थे, ये भी जानकारी है। ये हादसा टोक्यो के हानेडा एयरपोर्ट पर हुआ है। तस्वीरें लगातार आपको दिखा रहे हैं। देखिए यही वो विमान है जिसमें आग लगी और कैसे ये लपटें उठती नजर आई। भयानक यहाँ पर तस्वीरें जो है आग की सामने आई है। लेकिन बड़ी जानकारी यह है कि जो लोग इसमें सवार थे उन्हें सुरक्षित, अब ये दूसरी तस्वीर दिखा रहे हैं आपको, अलग अलग एंगल से ली गई तस्वीरें हम आप तक पहुंचा रहे हैं। न्यूज 18 इंडिया पर आप इस वक्त ये एक्सक्लूसिव तस्वीरें देख रहे हैं और इसे समझिए कि दो विमानों की टक्कर होती है और एक विमान में वहां पर आग लग जाती है। न्यूज 18 इंडिया पर ये एक्सक्लूसिव तस्वीरें। आग लगने के वक्त यहां पर तमाम यात्री भी सवार थे, हालांकि उन्हें सुरक्षित निकाल लिया गया।
ये तस्वीरें आप देखिए न्यूज 18 इंडिया पर एक्सक्लूसिव तस्वीरें जापान के टोक्यो से दिखा रहे हैं, जहां पर विमान में आग लगती है। दरअसल रनवे पर दो विमानों की आपस में टक्कर हो जाती है। 367 यात्री सवार थे। राहत की बात यह है कि सभी यात्री सुरक्षित हैं। वक्त रहते उनको निकाल लिया गया, लेकिन इसे बड़ी लापरवाही कहा जाएगा कि कैसे दो विमानों की टक्कर हो जाती है। ये जांच का विषय है। नीरज, न्यूज 18 इंडिया संवाददाता फोन लाइन पर मौजूद है। नीरज, बहुत बड़ा हादसा होने से टल गया, लेकिन इसे बड़ी लापरवाही कहा जाएगा, क्या कारण बताए जा रहे हैं?
देखिए बिल्कुल ये तो जांच के बाद पता चलेगा, लेकिन जो
Collision. So it shows that two bodies collided and there was a ball of fire in one spot, while the plane that was possibly landing just now carrying forward with fire on it as well. Those are the visuals on the right of your screen. So it seems like two aircrafts colliding. The Coast Guard has suggested it could be one of their aircrafts. Remember, Japan has had, of course, a high magnitude earthquake. There have been tsunami warnings. There's been some destruction, about 30 people dead as well because of those earthquake-related incidents. And a lot of activity must be going on in Tokyo and other regions, especially with the Coast Guard activities and other rescue and relief operations. And it seems like something has gone amiss in all of that hectic activity taking place in Japan. So this is a JAL flight 516. We are being told that landed at the Tokyo airport, the Haneda airport, and collided with a Japanese Coast Guard aircraft, and then caught on fire. It's certainly the Coast Guard aircraft would have also caught fire. Unsure what was in it and who was in it. But it seems like as many as 360 people in all were there, at least on this plane, including the crew possibly. And they have been evacuated. That is what NHK is telling us. NHK is the Japanese news service. There will, of course, Abhishek, I just want to come back across to you just for, for the benefit of our viewers, the troubles that Japan has been facing over the last couple of days, and then this only adding to that.
Of course, like it's an awful start for the people in Japan. 2 consecutive days, they have 2 major tragedies. One was 7.5 magnitude, killing almost more than 40 people, and demolishing hundreds of buildings across Japan. Second day, it has just begun, and we are witnessing another tragedy of 2 planes colliding. Nobody was talking about the Coast Guard plane, which has actually collided with this passenger plane. I'm sure the crew members in that plane may have also, got injured, or some casualty may have happened. The kind of footages that are emerging for that passenger plane, JL 516, with almost 360 people on board, it does suggest some massive fire. We are seeing dozens of fire tenders, attempting to douse the flame immediately as it was still burning. And probably officials are telling us that no passenger has died. All of them have survived. So it is the good news, but it doesn't look like people have come out unscathingly. They may have had, some of them may have clearly serious injuries. What kind of injuries and how many of them have actually survived, without any injury, we'll have to wait for more information. But it was a rare incident that has happened, that a plane with 367 passengers landed on the runway safely, and it was moving towards this Bay Area when suddenly it is colliding with another Coast Guard plane, and both of them catches fire. So this is a rarity. However, the captain, just a few minutes ago, our expert was explaining how even though we have a lot of technologies and everything has become so modern, and especially in a country like Japan, all the guidance that are visually they are getting, and there is no GPS kind of thing that would suggest, okay, something is incurring or something is, coming in their way on the runway. So it is probably the limitation of the technology, especially in the aviation sector, that has seen such type of incidences happening, not only now, but in the past also we have seen multiple such smaller incidents happening, but not a major tragedy like one that we just saw happening in Haneda Airport in Japan's Tokyo, where about 367 people have just had a close shave when their plane had caught fire after ramming into another Coast Guard plane, which was also on the same runway which this plane was moving along.
Abhishek, just stay with me because I just want to, for the benefit of our viewers, mention that this seems to be a domestic Japanese airline or flight. JL 516 took off from Sapporo in Japan itself in the evening because Japan being ahead than India in time. So about 4:15 and landed at Tokyo around 5:47 p.m. when this incident took place. So it is an internal domestic Japanese flight, and unsure, of the exact number of passengers on this flight, but it looks like there would be a lot of Japanese itself on this flight. But the good thing, Abhishek, that you're also tracking as per the news reports coming in from Japan and otherwise, is that it seems absolutely everyone connected to this incident, either in this plane, which was the passenger plane, or the Coast Guard plane, seem to have survived. About 400 such individuals, passengers and crew.
Well, it does look like, officially they are telling us that all of them have survived. But seeing the condition of plane, it doesn't look like they have all survived without any injury or any major problems, because the structure, eventually now the more footages have emerged, which is showing that the entire structure of the plane has burned. It is almost burning to the ashes, no matter how many fire tenders have reached to attend the incident. Probably they were able to rescue passengers through the gate, through the opening gate or the emergency gate, and all the passengers have come out. And the numbers of passengers were very high, about 370, 367 or 70. This is the roughly the number that we are getting. People were on board, and I hope all of them had eventually gotten out of the plane within few minutes, because it didn't take much of time before the plane was entirely engulfed into this high temperature flame that would eventually melt the entire, the hard structure of the plane. We could see those fire tenders attending to the situation, and officials are telling us that all the passengers have survived. But the more investigation will, of course, reveal how a plane which was landing on the runway with serious speed and about 370 persons on board collided with a Japanese Coast Guard plane. As we have been talking about, probably because of the tsunami and so many emergency situations happening around the country, this Coast Guard plane may have also been hurried to go somewhere, or maybe has been coming from somewhere, and probably the air traffic controller or the persons who were responsible to man those airstrips could not, coordinate well, and that became the incident where we have seen this passenger plane with JL 516, which was not very old plane. It was it is being reported that it was just a 2-year-old plane. So any technical snag happening at the time of landing is most likely not going to be the case. It was just normal two planes colliding with each other at a high speed, and that resulted in this fireball emerging and engulfing the entire plane. And but we do see a lot of flight attendants attending the situation, and officials are telling us that all the passengers have come out safely. They have all survived. With what kind of injuries or what kind of burn injuries, that we are not sure. But for now, no casualties is being reported.
So what
from
we
the
do
Haneda
know,
Airport in
Abhishek,
Japan.
is that 367 were on board the passenger plane. They all seem to have survived. We do not know what happened to the Coast Guard plane, which seemed to be a large Dash 8 plane. And what happened to those on that aircraft is still unknown, but we'll keep a track of that. I do thank you for joining us and giving us all the updates. We slip into a very short break. News and updates will continue.
देख रहे हैं टक्कर वहां हुई और उसके बाद ये विमान जिसमें आग लगी वो आगे की तरफ बढ़ते हुए 68 यात्री सवार थे। ये भी जानकारी है। ये हादसा टोक्यो के हानेडा एयरपोर्ट पर हुआ है। तस्वीरें लगातार आपको दिखा रहे हैं। देखिए यही वो विमान है जिसमें आग लगी और कैसे ये लपटें उठती नजर आई। भयानक यहाँ पर तस्वीरें जो है आग की सामने आई है। लेकिन बड़ी जानकारी ये है कि जो लोग इसमें सवार थे उन्हें सुरक्षित, अब ये दूसरी तस्वीर दिखा रहे हैं आपको, अलग अलग एंगल से ली गई तस्वीरें हम आप तक पहुंचा रहे हैं। न्यूज 18 इंडिया पर आप इस वक्त ये एक्सक्लूसिव तस्वीरें देख रहे हैं और इसे समझिए कि दो विमानों की टक्कर होती है और एक विमान में वहां पर आग लग जाती है। न्यूज 18 इंडिया पर ये एक्सक्लूसिव तस्वीरें। आग लगने के वक्त यहां पर तमाम यात्री भी सवार थे, हालांकि उन्हें सुरक्षित निकाल लिया गया।
ये तस्वीरें आप देखिए न्यूज 18 इंडिया पर एक्सक्लूसिव तस्वीरें जापान के टोक्यो से दिखा रहे हैं जहां पर विमान में आग लगती है। दरअसल रनवे पर दो विमानों की आपस में टक्कर हो जाती है। 367 यात्री सवार थे। राहत की बात यह है कि सभी यात्री सुरक्षित हैं। वक्त रहते उनको निकाल लिया गया, लेकिन इसे बड़ी लापरवाही कहा जाएगा कि कैसे दो विमानों की टक्कर हो जाती है। ये जांच का विषय है। नीरज, न्यूज 18 इंडिया संवाददाता फोन लाइन पर मौजूद है। नीरज, बहुत बड़ा हादसा होने से टल गया, लेकिन इसे बड़ी लापरवाही कहा जाएगा, क्या कारण बताए जा रहे हैं?
देखिए बिल्कुल ये तो जांच के बाद पता चलेगा, लेकिन जो तस्वीर
So it shows that some
रनवे की तस्वीर आप देख रहे हैं। टक्कर वहां हुई और उसके बाद ये विमान जिसमें आग लगी वो आगे की तरफ बढ़ते हुए आपको दिखाई देगी। 367 यात्री सवार थे। ये भी जानकारी है। ये हादसा टोक्यो के हानेडा एयरपोर्ट पर हुआ है। तस्वीरें लगातार आपको दिखा रहे हैं। देखिए यही वो विमान है जिसमें आग लगी और कैसे ये लपटें उठती नजर आई। भयानक यहाँ पर तस्वीरें जो है आग की सामने आई है। लेकिन बड़ी जानकारी ये है कि जो लोग इसमें सवार थे उन्हें सुरक्षित, अब ये दूसरी तस्वीर दिखा रहे हैं आपको, अलग अलग एंगल से ली गई तस्वीरें हम आप तक पहुंचा रहे हैं। न्यूज 18 इंडिया पर आप इस वक्त ये एक्सक्लूसिव तस्वीरें देख रहे हैं और इसे समझिए कि दो विमानों की टक्कर होती है और एक विमान में वहां पर आग लग जाती है। न्यूज 18 इंडिया पर ये एक्सक्लूसिव तस्वीरें। आग लगने के वक्त यहां पर तमाम यात्री भी सवार थे, हालांकि उन्हें सुरक्षित निकाल लिया गया।
ये तस्वीरें आप देखिए न्यूज 18 इंडिया पर एक्सक्लूसिव तस्वीरें जापान के टोक्यो से दिखा रहे हैं, जहां पर विमान में आग लगती है। दरअसल रनवे पर दो विमानों की आपस में टक्कर हो जाती है। 367 यात्री सवार थे। राहत की बात यह है कि सभी यात्री सुरक्षित हैं। वक्त रहते उनको निकाल लिया गया, लेकिन इसे बड़ी लापरवाही कहा जाएगा कि कैसे दो विमानों की टक्कर हो जाती है, ये जांच का विषय है। नीरज, न्यूज 18 इंडिया संवाददाता फोन लाइन पर मौजूद है। नीरज, बहुत बड़ा हादसा होने से टल गया, लेकिन इसे बड़ी लापरवाही कहा जाएगा, क्या कारण बताए जा रहे हैं?
देखिए बिल्कुल, ये तो जांच के बाद पता चलेगा, लेकिन जो तस्वीर
So it shows that some
रनवे की तस्वीर आप देख रहे हैं। टक्कर वहां हुई और उसके बाद ये विमान जिसमें आग लगी वो आगे की तरफ बढ़ते हुए आपको दिखाई देगी। 367 यात्री सवार थे, ये भी जानकारी है। ये हादसा टोक्यो के हानेडा एयरपोर्ट पर हुआ है। तस्वीरें लगातार आपको दिखा रहे हैं। देखिए, यही वो विमान है जिसमें आग लगी और कैसे ये लपटें उठती नजर आई। भयानक यहाँ पर तस्वीरें जो है आग की सामने आई है। लेकिन बड़ी जानकारी यह है कि जो लोग इसमें सवार थे उन्हें सुरक्षित, अब ये दूसरी तस्वीर दिखा रहे हैं आपको। अलग अलग एंगल से ली गई तस्वीरें हम आप तक पहुंचा रहे हैं। न्यूज 18 इंडिया पर आप इस वक्त ये एक्सक्लूसिव तस्वीरें देख रहे हैं और इसे समझिए कि दो विमानों की टक्कर होती है और एक विमान में वहां पर आग लग जाती है। न्यूज 18 इंडिया पर ये एक्सक्लूसिव तस्वीरें। आग लगने के वक्त यहां पर तमाम यात्री भी सवार थे, हालांकि उन्हें सुरक्षित निकाल लिया गया।
ये तस्वीरें आप देखिए न्यूज 18 इंडिया पर एक्सक्लूसिव तस्वीरें जापान के टोक्यो से दिखा रहे हैं, जहां पर विमान में आग लगती है। दरअसल रनवे पर दो विमानों की आपस में टक्कर हो जाती है। 367 यात्री सवार थे। राहत की बात यह है कि सभी यात्री सुरक्षित हैं। वक्त रहते उनको निकाल लिया गया, लेकिन इसे बड़ी लापरवाही कहा जाएगा कि कैसे दो विमानों की टक्कर हो जाती है, ये जांच का विषय है। नीरज, न्यूज 18 इंडिया संवाददाता फोन लाइन पर मौजूद है। नीरज, बहुत बड़ा हादसा होने से टल गया, लेकिन इसे बड़ी लापरवाही कहा जाएगा, क्या कारण बताए जा रहे हैं?
देखिए बिल्कुल, ये तो जांच के बाद पता चलेगा, लेकिन जो तस्वीर
so it shows that some
रनवे की तस्वीर आप देख रहे हैं। टक्कर वहां हुई और उसके बाद ये विमान जिसमें आग लगी वो आगे की तरफ बढ़ते हुए आपको दिखाई देगी। 367 यात्री सवार थे, ये भी जानकारी है। ये हादसा टोक्यो के हानेडा एयरपोर्ट पर हुआ है। तस्वीरें लगातार आपको दिखा रहे हैं। देखिए, यही वो विमान है जिसमें आग लगी और कैसे ये लपटें उठती नजर आई। भयानक यहाँ पर तस्वीरें जो है आग की सामने आई है। लेकिन बड़ी जानकारी यह है कि जो लोग इसमें सवार थे उन्हें सुरक्षित, अब ये दूसरी तस्वीर दिखा रहे हैं आपको। अलग अलग एंगल से ली गई तस्वीरें हम आप तक पहुंचा रहे हैं। न्यूज 18 इंडिया पर आप इस वक्त ये एक्सक्लूसिव तस्वीरें देख रहे हैं और इसे समझिए कि दो विमानों की टक्कर होती है और एक विमान में वहां पर आग लग जाती है। न्यूज 18 इंडिया पर ये एक्सक्लूसिव तस्वीरें। आग लगने के वक्त यहां पर तमाम यात्री भी सवार थे, हालांकि उन्हें सुरक्षित निकाल लिया गया।
ये तस्वीरें आप देखिए न्यूज 18 इंडिया पर एक्सक्लूसिव तस्वीरें जापान के टोक्यो से दिखा रहे हैं, जहां पर विमान में आग लगती है। दरअसल रनवे पर दो विमानों की आपस में टक्कर हो जाती है। 367 यात्री सवार थे। राहत की बात यह है कि सभी यात्री सुरक्षित हो जाती है, ये जांच का विषय है। नीरज, न्यूज 18 इंडिया संवाददाता फोन लाइन पर मौजूद है। नीरज, बहुत बड़ा हादसा होने से टल गया, लेकिन इसे बड़ी लापरवाही दिखाई देगी। 367 यात्री सवार थे, ये भी जानकारी है। ये हादसा टोक्यो के हानेडा एयरपोर्ट पर हुआ है। तस्वीरें लगातार आपको दिखा रहे हैं। देखिए, यही वो विमान है जिसमें आग लगी और कैसे ये लपटें उठती नजर आई। भयानक यहाँ पर तस्वीरें जो है आग की सामने आई है। लेकिन बड़ी जानकारी यह है कि जो लोग इसमें सवार थे उन्हें सुरक्षित, अब ये दूसरी तस्वीर दिखा रहे हैं आपको। अलग अलग एंगल से ली गई तस्वीरें हम आप तक पहुंचा रहे हैं। न्यूज 18 इंडिया पर आप इस वक्त ये एक्सक्लूसिव तस्वीरें देख रहे हैं और इसे समझिए कि दो विमानों की टक्कर होती है और एक विमान में वहां पर आग लग जाती है। न्यूज 18 इंडिया पर ये एक्सक्लूसिव तस्वीरें। आग लगने के वक्त यहां पर तमाम यात्री भी सवार थे, हालांकि उन्हें सुरक्षित निकाल लिया गया। ये तस्वीरें आप देखिए न्यूज 18 इंडिया पर एक्सक्लूसिव तस्वीरें जापान के टोक्यो से दिखा रहे हैं, जहां पर विमान में आग लगती है। दरअसल रनवे पर दो विमानों की आपस में टक्कर हो जाती है। 367 यात्री सवार थे। राहत की बात यह है कि सभी यात्री सुरक्षित हैं। वक्त रहते उनको निकाल लिया गया, लेकिन इसे बड़ी लापरवाही कहा जाएगा कि कैसे दो विमानों की टक्कर हो जाती है, ये जांच का विषय है। नीरज, न्यूज 18 इंडिया संवाददाता फोन लाइन पर मौजूद है। नीरज, बहुत बड़ा हादसा होने से टल गया, लेकिन इसे बड़ी लापरवाही कहा जाएगा, क्या कारण बताए जा रहे हैं?
देखिए बिल्कुल, ये तो जांच के बाद पता चलेगा, लेकिन जो तस्वीर
so it shows that some
रनवे रनवे की तस्वीर आप देख रहे हैं, टक्कर वहां हुई और उसके बाद ये विमान जिसमें आग लगी वो आगे की तरफ बढ़ते हुए आपको दिखाई देगी। 367 यात्री सवार थे, ये भी जानकारी है। ये हादसा टोक्यो के हानेडा एयरपोर्ट पर हुआ है। तस्वीरें लगातार आपको दिखा रहे हैं, देखिए यही वो विमान है जिसमें आग लगी और कैसे ये लपटें उठती नजर आई। भयानक यहाँ पर तस्वीरें जो है आग की सामने आई है। लेकिन बड़ी जानकारी यह है कि जो लोग इसमें सवार थे उन्हें सुरक्षित, अब ये दूसरी तस्वीर दिखा रहे हैं आपको, अलग अलग एंगल से ली गई तस्वीरें हम आप तक पहुंचा रहे हैं। न्यूज़ 18 इंडिया पर आप इस वक्त ये एक्सक्लूसिव तस्वीरें देख रहे हैं और इसे समझिए कि दो विमानों की टक्कर होती है और एक विमान में वहां पर आग लग जाती है। न्यूज़ 18 इंडिया पर ये एक्सक्लूसिव तस्वीरें, आग लगने के वक्त यहां पर तमाम यात्री भी सवार थे, हालांकि उन्हें सुरक्षित निकाल लिया गया।
ये तस्वीरें आप देखिए न्यूज़ 18 इंडिया पर एक्सक्लूसिव तस्वीरें जापान के टोक्यो से दिखा रहे हैं, जहां पर विमान में आग लगती है। दरअसल रनवे पर दो विमानों की आपस में टक्कर हो जाती है। 367 यात्री सवार थे। राहत की बात यह है कि सभी यात्री सुरक्षित हैं, वक्त रहते उनको निकाल लिया गया, लेकिन इसे बड़ी लापरवाही कहा जाएगा कि कैसे दो विमानों की टक्कर हो जाती है। ये जांच का विषय है। नीरज, न्यूज़ 18 इंडिया संवाददाता फोन लाइन पर मौजूद है। नीरज, बहुत बड़ा हादसा होने से टल गया, लेकिन इसे बड़ी लापरवाही कहा जाएगा, क्या कारण बताए जा रहे हैं?
देखिए बिल्कुल ये तो जांच के बाद पता चलेगा, लेकिन जो तस्वीर
So it shows that some
रनवे की तस्वीर आप देख रहे हैं, टक्कर वहां हुई और उसके बाद ये विमान जिसमें आग लगी वो आगे की तरफ बढ़ते हुए आपको दिखाई देगी। 367 यात्री सवार थे, ये भी जानकारी है। ये हादसा टोक्यो के हानेडा एयरपोर्ट पर हुआ है।